Hey MLO fans, we are back for our Overlanding 101 segment on our YouTube channel here at Mainline Overland, and we wanted to talk about mid-size trucks. So what are the options, guys?
Yeah, we're talking Toyota Tacoma, Ford Ranger, Chevy Colorado, and also the Jeep Gladiator.
Yep.
All right, starting off with the exterior, what stands out to me the most about the Toyota Tacoma is the availability of accessories and how easily we can bolt them on. They literally have a breakaway panel on that front bumper that we can rip off and install a steel setup to hold a winch and recovery points. What do you think?
Yeah, there's nothing really else exterior-wise that really stands out to me. It's kind of the truck you see every day. In the stock format, nothing really super exciting.
Yeah.
But they obviously know their customers are going to upgrade.
Yeah.
And they kind of make that easier for the customers down the road.
Yeah.
I think everybody is trying to be the Tacoma.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's a successful formula that people have built off of. But yeah, you can definitely build a OEM plus very capable rig without looking like you cashed out your kid's college fund.
Yeah, you could build a really
even though you
capable
still
rig.
can.
Yeah.
So talking about the exterior of the Gladiator, it's probably one of my favorite in this segment. If you're a Jeep fan, you're going to like how the Gladiator looks, because from the front it looks just like a Jeep. You don't really notice it's any different until you step around the back and see the little bed on it.
What's crazy about it is it's in the same category. It's the only one you can take the whole roof off of.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
That is pretty wild. Not to mention, the fact that it's got solid axles. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you have a convertible truck. I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
That's been done since the SSR.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a mini truck in.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you're going to have to cut all your pieces of plywood in half if you're going to go to Home Depot lengthwise to fit them in your little bed. But
it's a very
we all
small
got to pay the
bed.
price.
You've got the wheel wells on the outside of the bed. They're not really built into that center section, so really your width-wise and your interior space.
If you're buying a truck to do truck stuff, the Gladiator's probably should be the last on your list. But if you're looking for something capable off-road, the Gladiator is
fun
definitely
and unique and different.
Yeah.
The Gladiator.
It has the biggest truck bed of a truck you can remove the roof of.
True.
Cool. Yeah.
All right, next on our list is the Ford Ranger. What do you guys like or dislike about the Ranger?
I dislike the AARP vibes that you get when you roll up in a Ranger. That's changed a lot with the new one, and it's like the worldwide platform finally. But you can get a pretty good amount of lift out of a Ranger very easily. Probably the most lift out of the IFS midsize truck category.
Yeah, we have a Ranger as one of our company trucks, and with like an all-man EMU suspension kit, and
Looks like it's got like 3.5 to 4 inches of lift.
crazy,
It's crazy.
ground clearance.
It's got 33s on there, and they look inadequate.
Yeah,
like
it's
transport
really
tires.
impressive actually. The beds are very deep. Right?
Very deep.
That bed line is
high belt
really
line.
high on the belt line, and so it makes for a little bit odd, visual. I would say if you put a topper on it and other things like that. But
It's like wearing your pants up around by your nipples, maybe, but you fit a lot in there with your big pants.
Let's last off. Let's talk about the Chevy Colorado. Exterior-wise, likes, dislikes.
I think it's my favorite of the bunch.
Really? I thought it was no accident we're talking about it last. But I think...
Were you talking about the current gen or the new one that's coming out?
They both have very aggressive styling,
Yeah.
reasonably up front. Some pretty cool options to make it more aggressive.
The ZR2s definitely look angry up front.
Yeah. I think that, the refresh has done a lot. They were starting to look very dated. But maybe a little bit more proportional than the Ranger.
Yeah.
I think still trying to be the Tacoma.
Still has a high bed line if we were talking about that,
Yeah.
the belt line.
Yeah.
I will say I've been in a couple Colorados, and that hood is very high on that.
Yeah.
And it is a little bit difficult to see out.
See over.
Yeah. But we'll talk about more about that in the interior section.
All right, guys. So wrapping up the exterior, what do we think is the best looking of all the midsize trucks?
I think we all agree that the Gladiator kind of blows it out of the water, with the aggressive classic styling, the fact that you can remove the top, you still have some of a truck bed to use.
Yeah.
Hard to beat.
Yeah, out of the box, hard to beat that look.
All right, Tacoma Interior. If you've ever been in one, I'm sorry. The new dash is very nice. They've updated it dramatically over the second gens. It is night and day. Unfortunately, you're still sitting on a beach chair on the floor, and your lower back will require surgery at 40 to 60,000 miles when you do your shock rebuild.
I think everyone can kind of agree with that that's owned a Tacoma. That's kind of the number one complaint we always hear is the seating position.
Yeah.
It's pretty dreadful.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's like if you're sitting at the kitchen table and you got your legs on top of the table. That's how
Agreed.
you're sitting, essentially.
Yeah. One thing I do have to mention is wind noise is definitely a thing in the Tacoma, especially the access cab. You start flexing that thing around and you can feel and almost see that access cab rear door moving around on you.
True.
That's a note.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Gladiator interior, I've been pretty impressed with Jeep's interiors as of recently. From the JK to the JL, they made a huge jump. Obviously, the new Gladiator is basically using JL kind of products and materials inside.
Yeah.
And it's definitely been a huge upgrade over the previous Jet JK, which definitely felt kind of cheap and kind of Fisher Price feel
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah, the switch work I think is really nice. You're mixing some metals, some really textured plastics, some
Yeah.
painted finishes that are tasteful and not high gloss. It is a little tight. You know, it's almost got a little bit of that Defender elbow deal where you don't know where to put this, but you know, it comes with the territory for a narrow vehicle to get down the trails.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think the Gladiator interior is on point. It's getting a little bit further away from the old, you know, you can take a hose and wash out the interior of your Jeep kind of mode with all the leather and the nicer materials. But I think, you know, I think the reality is that the customer base that's going to be able to afford that kind of a vehicle needs the creature comforts to be able to back it up.
Yeah, sure. And I do like the seating position and how you're close up to the windshield. It gives you really good visibility on trail. One downside of that is the windshield's crack super easily.
Okay, so starting off with the Ford Ranger interior, it has an elevated seating position.
It does.
So that is just about the only good thing I can say about it. Your lower back won't be upset. You can see a lot out, and you sit in it like a real chair. How about you?
It's just really boring inside.
Yeah.
It's all kind of gray and black and nothing really exciting, but it's a Ford truck, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's all business and nothing fancy.
Yeah. But not as bad of a seating position as the Tacoma.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a bad place to be for a long period of time.
It's definitely, like, the seats are comfortable. It's just not an exciting place to be.
Right, Chevy Colorado interior, what do you guys think?
It's like the rest of GM's products inside.
Like 10 years behind the times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they might have updated a little bit on the newest one. I haven't seen a ton of them yet. Seating position is better than the Tacoma.
Yeah.
You know, kind of on par with the Ranger. I'm not sure what wins, the Ranger or the Colorado, for like dash and materials.
I would say the quality of the Ford is probably maybe a little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, the Colorado is a cool truck, but the interior, like GM's, always 10 years behind.
Yeah.
Like when they were using the old like 80s Suburban radio in a C5, you know, 10 years later.
The one thing I
Those are the
noticed,
vibes.
being in the Colorados, there's really thick A-pillars, which kind of obstructed the view
More blind spots.
inside the vehicle.
Yeah, and you're always waiting for those airbags to just go off on you, right? Because they're just like very,
Bound to happen. Right in your
yeah.
face.
very upset to be in the
Cycling.
Colorado
Yeah.
A-pillars.
All right, guys, who do we think wins on the interior look and appeal?
I'm going to say the Gladiator. I think we can all agree that it has the nice materials, nice kind of modern but still traditional styling.
Yeah.
Big thing for me is the visibility inside the Jeep.
Yeah.
That gives a lot of points for near off-roading. That makes a really big difference to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's updated styling, kind of almost that like modern interpretation of what it should be. A little bit cramped, but you can't win them all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I think Gladiator.
Fiat Chrysler did a good job. And
Yeah, no surprise Fiat Chrysler wins interior. All right, moving on to powertrain. The Jeep Gladiator has a couple different options. We have a V6 manual, we have a V6 automatic, and we have a automatic turbo diesel as well.
Yeah, they call that the Eco Diesel.
The Eco Diesel, yes.
Which one would you take if you're
I
building
think
a
I'd
Jeep?
go with the Eco Diesel. I mean, it's a very kind of Euro Defender 130 style, you know, rig at that point with the quad cab, short bed, a little bit better mileage. The 22 city, 28 highway over like what 17 and 22.
Yeah, from stock. So if you lift and tires and wheels. And
Something important to notice, you know,
Yeah.
before you start adding weight.
you know, I kind of like a manual Jeep.
Yeah.
It's hard to beat a manual Jeep, but the
More
Eco Diesel
entertaining on the trail.
is pretty tempting for sure. So if you're trying to add a lot of weight and you want to be able to, you know, back it up with some pulling power, I think the diesel is probably the way to go.
I mean, longevity-wise, yet to be determined. You know, in our family, we've had extremely bad luck with diesel-powered Jeeps.
True.
So, Yeah, probably the manual V6 is the most reliable.
It's kind of the tried and true. You know it's going to work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or what's going to fail.
Yeah. So moving on to the Tacoma Powertrain and transmission engine options. So you have the 6-cylinder and the 4-cylinder. Those are your two options.
Manual or auto.
Yeah, and either of those can be mated to an automatic or manual. The Tacoma 6-cylinder is pretty underpowered,
Yeah.
and I can't imagine what it's like driving the 4-cylinder.
Yeah, the automatic search for gears nonstop. I personally owned one for a number of years.
Yeah.
And you got to go with the manual if you want to be able to wind it out, or you got to be prepared to re-gear pretty much immediately if you're going to go to a bigger wheel tire size, right?
I mean, I think from the options, like no one really wins with the options available for the Tacoma drivetrain.
No.
So it's a matter of what you're after. The V6 is like it's still a dog. You need to get the manual to really wind it out.
Yeah.
Or the 4-cylinder might be fun because you're just going to drive it like you stole it, like Miata style, like Momentum car.
Yeah.
The 4-cylinder used to be cool when you could get it in the second gen with like the single cab and really rip it around.
Bring the single cab back.
Bring the single cab back, and then
Please.
we'll stop giving you a hard time about your little motors.
V6 manual in single cab would be acceptable. All right, next up is the Ford Ranger with the 2.3 liter EcoBoost.
Yep.
Mated to a 10-speed automatic transmission. What do we think?
I think it's good power. I mean, it's a tiny little motor, a 2.3, but it's got a turbo on it. You get 270 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque.
Yeah.
Feels pretty punchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first time I drove a Ranger, I was pretty impressed with how quick it was off the line. I like that it makes cool turbo noises.
Yeah.
With the snorkel.
Yeah, with the snorkel, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's like a whistle tip. We highly recommend the snorkel. It'll make you feel more powerful, more excited.
It can handle the weight of added accessories you're going to throw at it, basically.
Yeah, it can really well. It actually has pretty good towing capacity too. So it can't really knock it on the drivetrain.
Yeah.
And we're limited to the 2.3 here in the States, so it's kind of our only option anyway. All right, on the Colorado, we have a couple different options. We're only going to talk about a few. They have a V6 gasoline-powered engine, and then we have a 2.8 liter Duramax option. I think we would definitely all go with the 2.8 out of those.
Yeah.
That's for that kind of current gen. For 2023, the newest gen, they've now gone to a 2.7 4-cylinder turbo.
And from the specs we saw, it looks to be pretty spicy.
Yeah, like 430 pound-feet of torque. It sounds like it's what they would be using for the Chevy Silverado 1500. So definitely changing it up a little bit, almost maybe going more towards that Ranger way of doing things with kind of less displacement, bigger turbo.
Yep.
But the Trail Boss is going to be exciting. I think with the new 2.7, we'll see what we think. We have not driven one, so but probably an improvement. All right, we think that the Chevy Colorado takes the cake with the 2.8 liter Duramax. Out of a range of fairly not exciting engines in this whole segment, I think that this is at least the most reliable and exciting because it's diesel, and you're not going to take your diesel Gladiator to a Jeep dealer and they're going to just tell you to lemon lot. So
Yeah, a lot of not amazing history there.
Yeah.
EcoBoost, you can run into some issues.
Yeah.
Potentially. The Duramax is probably your most durable option out of those three.
For
I
sure.
agree.
Moving on to our final segment here, we're going to be taking a look at suspension and aftermarket components on the Gladiator.
Yeah, I think the Gladiator hands down takes the cake on aftermarket availability, different options from mild to wild, hideous to pretty good OEM plus looking.
Yeah.
Suspension wise, you've got solid axles, you've got optional sway bar disconnects, you've got lockers. So kind of almost in a class by itself.
Agreed.
Yeah, mild to wild, you've got a huge range for
Yeah.
sure.
On the Tacoma, we have a couple different options depending on trim level. You kind of got your base standard coilover strut setup, leaf spring shock in the rear. And then as we go up to the TRD Pro, we get a little bit of a different option from Fox or the older trucks, the Bilstein coilovers. If you're going to build your truck, I think the TRD Pro trim level is kind of a waste of money.
Yeah.
I think
Agreed.
that's pretty unanimous. Some great aftermarket support for long travel, both front and rear, but it's going to involve a lot of cutting, a lot of welding, and it is pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Still exciting, still a lot to do, but it's going to cost you.
Yeah, tons of aftermarket support. I think, you know.
On the rest of the truck.
On the rest of the truck, I mean, suspension too. I mean, just in terms of the number of vendors you can get a kit
For sure.
from.
Do you think of a truck that has more long travel suppliers for?
No.
Yeah,
True.
definitely a big market. Lots of availability: sliders, center bumpers, swing out rear bumpers, full width bumpers, roof rack. Like, you know, so definitely up there for sure.
Yeah. All right, Ford Ranger. In terms of suspension options, you know, obviously leaf sprung. You know, you got the, you know.
Oh God, that's how exciting the Ford Ranger is, folks.
Well,
got
there's not many options from the factory that like to spice it up much, right?
You can get the Tremor now, which you get like an extra inch or two of lift.
Okay.
But
Probably a waste of
All
money.
right, so maybe
Yeah.
bring that up, right? All right.
will outfit you with a rear locker and I think about another inch of ground clearance.
Mm-hmm.
I think they put a heavier spring in there. But if you're really trying to fit a bigger tire on there, I think it's probably worth sticking kind of with the base and then upgrading from
Yeah,
there.
and a lot of the tried and true manufacturers have options. Old Man Emu,
SPC has a nice
SPC.
adjustable arm.
So there is aftermarket support, and you can, like we were saying earlier, you can get a lot of ground clearance out of a Ford Ranger pretty quick.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, not as large of an aftermarket when compared with like the Tacoma or Gladiator, at least stateside.
Yeah.
But you know, enough to get you
Yeah, plenty of
lifted,
options out there.
well sprung for the weight you're going to add, and armored up.
I
Yeah.
will say the AirB front bumper looks really good on the
Yeah,
Ranger.
the summit bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lastly, we're taking a look at the Colorado suspension and aftermarket upgrades. So my biggest thing about the Colorado is AEV has done a
Yes.
bunch of development with it. That's
Yeah.
kind of the big thing that sticks out in my mind.
The Bison.
Yeah, so you can actually buy the AEV Bison Edition right from the factory, which is pretty cool. And I really like that they have the fender flare kits that you can basically just cut those fenders, put the fender flares
Yeah.
on, and you're able to fit 35s
Yeah.
on the factory suspension, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, it's a nice cutaway kit without a whole lot of lift. You can really drastically change your tire size. The ZR2 has some interesting suspension with their like Multimatic, you know, whatever
Yeah.
gold reservoir situation. And AV does have a lot of stuff. With other brands as well, Expedition 1, a couple different kind of build to order options. I think probably a bit more aftermarket availability than the Ranger, wouldn't you agree?
I would agree.
At least
I would
stateside.
agree. Yeah, bumper wise and other accessories. Yeah, I would say the Colorado is probably definitely ahead of the Ranger for sure.
All right, so on this one, we're going to call it a draw between the Taco and the Jeep. In terms of aftermarket availability, suspension options, there are a ton for both. But when it comes down to the types of suspension and the types of outfitting you're going to do with the two, it's almost apples to oranges. So
Yeah.
kind of hard to pick. But right,
Yeah.
you guys agree?
Yeah, at the end of the day, if you're a Jeep person, you're going to pick the Gladiator all day.
Yeah.
If you're a Toyota person, you're going to pick the Tacoma.
Yeah,
Very true.
it's angry solid axle guys versus angry IFS guys, and you know, no one wins, and you all should have bought a full size truck.
With all the categories, it looks like the Jeep is winning a number of those categories. And I think what's interesting is if you want the best out of the box vehicle for off-roading, it's probably going to be a Jeep Wrangler, right?
Yeah.
But you still have a huge popularity of the Tacoma and the 4Runner and other vehicles out there for different reasons. So while I think the Jeep won on a lot of categories,
Yeah.
not all, you're still going to have other platforms that are going to be popular for their own reasons.
For sure, yeah. The Jeep wins on paper in terms of like off-road performance and amount of aftermarket parts. What it doesn't win at is that you can actually do stuff with your truck bed, you can fit a variety of things in it, and that you're going to want to drive it every day in terms of on-road comfort. So
True.
it's hard to pick here, but it's definitely Tacoma Jeep, no doubt, in this category. And it's really like, are you more about wheeling and beach cruising with your top off, or are you more about, you know, putting a variety of different campers and stuff in the back of your truck?
Versatile.
And, you know, hauling your family with a little less kind of, beach patrol vibes.
Yeah, I feel like if you really need a truck, I wouldn't recommend going out and buying a Gladiator.
Yeah,
But if you're looking for an overland platform that is super capable, tons of upgrades, I think the Jeep's a great choice. But if you kind of need that work hard, play hard, where you need to go pick up supplies during the week and
Yeah.
go camping on the weekend, I think the Tacoma's a better choice.
yeah. I think the market speaks and the Tacoma wins, but paper lets the Gladiator have a little victory here.
I think when the apocalypse comes, the Tacoma will be still rolling around, not hard to beat up, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you're going to see a lot of broke down Jeeps.
unless there's an EMP, so that's why you gotta have your old carb truck.
All right, so that wraps up our mid-size truck rundown. We gave you what we think in terms of opinions. Why don't you tell us what you think in the comments below?
And we'll let you know why you're wrong.
Be sure to subscribe and follow our channel for more awesome content from Mainline Overland. Thanks for watching.